All right. Hello and welcome to 2 PUCKS Hockey Chat with Scott and Chris. This is the December 8th edition. Welcome. And we have absolutely nothing for you tonight.
I mean, that's definitely one way of looking at it.
Scotty, go ahead. Take
So
take the reins.
yeah. Interesting. So wanted to hit on a couple things tonight. First thing hit on would be just the relationship between hockey players and fans. And most sports, you have big name athletes will. They'll go through and they'll stop at hospitals, or they'll adopt a cause, or they'll do something along those lines. But you kind of get with the NHL, without as many players in the league, and with as prominent as they are, the personalities, because there aren't as many players on the teams. You can kind of focus in on a couple stories. So just wanted to kind of keep it light and point out why I think that relationship that the players have with the fans is such a big deal, and why it really is so special to the fans. And so the first story, which is relatively recent, involves Leila Anderson. So Leila Anderson basically became the St. Louis Blues mascot for their run up through the playoffs in the Stanley Cup last season. So she basically got a really rare immune disease and needed bone marrow transplant. And she was a huge St. Louis Blues fan, but she got bedridden. And the story goes that she was well enough to make it to a couple games in the playoffs. The players reached out, basically adopted her, and she was there. They even gave her her own Stanley Cup ring. So the team really adopted her, and just it's a memory that's going to last for a long time. Well, just most recently, she got to meet her bone marrow donor, and so the Blues hosted the two of them at a game on Saturday, and of course, they broadcast the heck out of it. I mean, they they definitely squeezed it for all it was worth. But it's just another one of those good feel good stories where the team was able to rally around a little girl. They used that little girl for strength and inspiration, and to see her now out in public and healthy, and then to meet the bone marrow donor, and to see her just embrace him. And the team to really capture that and continue to share that story, I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think it's great.
Oh,
And,
yeah,
obviously we see teams across the league doing this all the time,
yep,
reuniting maybe someone who's in the military overseas and reuniting them with their family, or making donations to children's hospitals. Definitely a very touching stories. Um, I I don't mind the fact that they maybe milk the media a little bit on it. I think it's the reason why is because they're doing something, and there's so many people that aren't. You know, and I think it's a perfect opportunity to maybe light a spark somewhere where maybe there isn't. So I know for those people that are in attendance of these games, and they see, prior to the game, and maybe they see someone, dropping the puck who is in need, or who's been through, incredible amounts of trauma or tragedy, or overcome things in their lives. Um, I know that it's very touching. It's very inspirational for but yeah, I think anything philanthropic that an organization, a team can do, or the NHL as a whole can do, yeah, the more the better.
yeah. Another one that really every time I watch the video is it's like somebody peels onions, and that's that came the towards the end of last season. And so Carey Price, is often referred to as the best goalie in the NHL. He
Mhm.
plays goal for the Canadians. But he's a huge personality, and a lot of people look up to him. And at the end of last season, about last March, there was an 11-year-old named Anderson Whitehead who lost his mom, and his mom basically had kind of promised him that he'd get to meet his idol Carey Price, and so it didn't happen before she died, but the team found out about it, and he was Anderson was able to be at a morning skate, and so Carey Price comes off the ice, and the young man is there in the stands, and he gets to meet Carey, and he starts crying, like this is his idol, and Carey Price just spontaneously gave him a hug, and really just it wasn't just a arm around him and everything. It was a legitimate hug.
Yeah, it was a great clip.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah, many
yeah.
times.
And so that's just it's another one of those instances where a player is able to do a lot for someone who has suffered loss and is looking towards their hero for strength. And so even just something small like that, it's amazing. The last thing that I want to hit on story wise is PK Subban. So PK Subban also used to play for Montreal. He is certainly not the only player in the league who does this, but he pledged to raise $10 million over 7 years for Montreal Children's Hospital. And despite the fact that he was traded to Nashville, he still is on track to meet that $10 million, to raise that $10 million for the hospital. He has a program called PK's Helping Hands. And he's just for his personality on the ice, and for as much of a lightning rod as he can be, just to kind of put his stamp on something and to be able to help a children's hospital and continue that despite the fact that he no longer lives in Montreal, I think is a pretty big deal. So I think it's important to recognize that players make trips to hospitals. They go to visit the sick. As you mentioned before, they go to visit the military. And I think it's a big deal that they're able to take time out of their schedule. They certainly don't owe it to the fans. There's nothing there that requires them to do it. They're not contractually obligated to do it. But they certainly know that connection to the fan base is a big deal, and to foster that in the way that they do, I think is pretty commendable.
I agree with you 1,000%. A lot of these guys don't have to do what they have to do, and I think what you see is a reflection of things that had impacted them one way or another as kids, or going through life. And, they saw maybe people close to them, friends, family, with certain afflictions or go through certain challenges in their lives. And this is a way for them to, for someone who has an immediate family member or a friend go through something, the feeling can be, for yourself, can always be a sense of helplessness, where you don't have the ability to really, do something medically for somebody. So I think when someone is blessed enough to make it to a point in their life where they have a profession such as a professional athlete, and are then blessed with the resources and the funds and the money that goes with that, a lot of these guys see it as an opportunity to finally have a way to give back, and it's great. It's huge. Yep. It's great. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And as I said before, any way to promote those efforts and get it out there is can only do good. You're only sharing goodwill. Yep. So.
All right. Yeah. No, it's good stuff. And like I said, I just want to take some time out to point out those efforts. And
that was good.
It's good to recognize them. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. So next thing. So let's actually get into hockey talk. And I think that it's an interesting time. We're 2 months away from the NHL's trade deadline. Yet there are some names some teams that have been mentioned as really needing some help, and some big names thrown out. So I'm just going to kind of run down a couple of them, and we can hit on them or just keep moving. So Alex Galchenyuk. So he was part of the Phil Kessel trade between Pittsburgh and Arizona. Galchenyuk is basically a 20-goal scorer. He is not known for his defensive prowess. He is a playmaker who needs to be in the top 12, if not, I'm sorry. He needs to be in the first three lines, if not the first two lines. And so he is not a fit in Pittsburgh. He hasn't really produced offensively. He's been moved down to fourth line duty. And a guy like him scores in spurts, and he's certainly not going to score goals playing 10 minutes a game on the fourth line with guys who are really out there to chew up time. So it's interesting. So there's been a couple teams in on him, but Buffalo was one that was specifically mentioned. And so Pittsburgh is looking for defensive depth. So they've got a really good defensive core, but their depth drops off after their third pairing. And with the injuries that they have, they're trying to, they've got to bring somebody else in. And Buffalo Sabres happen to have defensemen in aplenty. They've scratched some big names over the past couple of games just because they can't crack the lineup. So it'll be interesting to see if Galchenyuk goes to Buffalo. Buffalo's had problems scoring on the power play, which is where Galchenyuk has found many of his points.
How is he going to go? What is the? I'm sorry to cut you off. How is? No, I'm just curious. What has been discussed with Buffalo? How is Buffalo going to obtain him? Is it going to be through a trade? Because Buffalo's already in cap hell.
They are. So they've got two names. One in particular who I think is probably going to be involved is Colin Miller. So Colin Miller also has a pretty high cap hit. So it would be an exchange of cap hits. And both of them, I believe, are on expiring contracts. So, you kind of take them on. I believe there's some long-term injured reserve relief that both teams have kind of pocketing. So anybody that doesn't know, if you have a team or a player that's on long-term injured reserve, the team actually gets a reprieve day for day. So that goes into a bank, so they can actually cash that out later on. So I think that's what it'll end up being. It'll be a player for player. I really don't think there's anything else going on, but there's a connection between Rutherford and Botterill, the two GMs. So Botterill worked for Pittsburgh before he went to Buffalo. They're two good friends. They keep in contact with each other. So I think that the likely destination for Galchenyuk is going to be going to Buffalo.
Yeah.
So the next one. Yeah. So, Galchenyuk, I think is probably going to be his last season in the NHL. If he gets another contract after the end of this year, I think it's going to be a year. I don't think it's going to pay much, or he's going to head over to Europe and play, either Europe or the KHL.
Right.
So the next one, the Maple Leafs. So Maple Leafs just can't win. They are, as you mentioned earlier, the term you used, cap hell. I mean, they're right up against it.
They are. There's four teams that are in cap hell: them, Buffalo, Boston, and Arizona.
Yeah. So the interesting thing with Toronto, of course, is they fired their head coach, but they have been making roster moves almost game to game to have a backup goalie, right? Yeah. And so Frederik Anderson, obviously can't play every game. The team in front of him has kind of hung him out to dry, so he's doing a lot of work without getting breaks. So Toronto's going to need to do something to get a backup goalie, and they're likely going to have to pay to get one. And I don't know exactly who that's going to be, but I think you're going to see Toronto make some sort of a trade, some sort of a move for a backup goalie to come in there to stabilize that lineup and give Anderson a break because he's going to get tired, and then that's going to be it. So. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the next one, I think would be an interesting.
Just a side note, not to cut you off.
Go ahead. Yeah.
It's kind of funny when you look at like some of the but some of the teams with the two of the teams in the top four of the most cap space they have the most room in the cap. Colorado Avalanche and the New York Islanders, right, are some of the best teams currently in the NHL. But then you look at Toronto, right, and as one of the top four teams with terrible cap, do, playing terrible. So you think, you spend all this money, you should get something in return. The Islanders aren't spending any money, and they're doing way better. So I guess maybe the moral to my point is coaching goes a long way.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
And
much
so
to add there. It was just a random thought.
No, it's interesting that you point that out. I mean, you take a look at a team like Pittsburgh, who has been like their lineup. You pretty much you're having to flip through the program or doing Google searches on guys like, who is this guy that's in the lineup now, right? With all the injuries that they've had, and there are other teams that that are getting hit too. But I think Pittsburgh actually leads the league in lost man games. But when you have a team that buys into the system and plays the game the way the coach wants, ultimately it breeds success. And so there are many teams that have lost big names and have been able to survive because of coaching. So yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. So so interesting too. Taylor Hall. So the Devils, again, we keep bringing it up, as dumpster fire. And I've seen a lot of reports that indicate, and just as you kind of pointed out, that the Colorado Avalanche seem to be the front runner to land Taylor Hall. So he's $6 million AAV, which ends at the end of the season. And depending upon how he produces, depending upon where he goes.
Exactly the space that they have.
Yep. So the Avalanche have I want to say it's like 5.9 in salary cap space. So logistically, wouldn't be that big of a deal. They may have to give away somebody else for the trade. They've got a bunch of drafts, a bunch of picks coming up. So yeah, I mean, I think that's probably going to be his ultimate landing spot. Is going to be Colorado. And man, Nathan McKinnon came out on record and said that for his next contract, he'll take less to stay in Colorado just to make sure the team has the money to put together a competitive roster. Sidney Crosby did the same thing in Pittsburgh, which a lot of people credit him for giving the Penguins the flexibility to bring guys in. So, you have players who aren't trying to max out. They want to win a Stanley Cup. And then with statements like that McKinnon made, it's on the owner and the GM. They have to take that and do something with it. They owe it to him to do that. So, I agree. Yeah. So another team that I thought would be interesting, potential destination for Hall might be the Islanders. So Lamoriello has been known for renting players in his history. And so, he may be in on Hall, or at least he probably should be in to make a pitch and see what happens, especially with as hard as they were going after Panarin in the offseason. It's clear that they were looking for a player like that. And if you're a team, which the Islanders are, that's really trying to push through and break through into the second and third round and possibly make a run on the cup, I think you have to maybe see what you can do. I think you have to kick the tires, don't you?
I agree with you from that standpoint. Where I would question Taylor Hall, because on a pure black and white type of discussion, I would lean towards saying yes for something like that. I think we have the resources and the depth in Bridgeport to be able to assist in making something like that happen, a deal like that happen. We have the cap. We have everything we need. We have all the resources we need to make. When I say we, being an Islanders fan, I'm talking about the Islanders. However, one thing that every player that has come and gone, not that there's a high turnover, but the players like recently, Filppula, Komarov, Robin Leonard, they come, they're on the team, Brassard, newer players. They say how tight of a unit it is, how tight the guys are on the team, how good the guys are, and that they've never experienced environments like that off the ice. Really, really tight camaraderie. They just get along. The chemistry is amazing. Now, it's one thing to make a trade for a guy who's in the middle of the season, and it's more of a business decision to acquire a player and bring him into your locker room. It's another thing where you have a player that's disgruntled and been disgruntled, and now that's not going to be a light switch type of transition for someone, say, like Taylor Hall. I would be a little bit worried about where his head is at. He's thinking he's going to be wanting a change. He wants a change. He wants to go from a situation that he's not happy with to a situation that he wants to be happy with, which tells me he's going to be critical of everything that happens in that transition. I might be wrong, but it's the type of thing where he's going to be questioning, okay, well, and I'm sure this would be discussed prior to finalizing any sort of deal, but he's going to be critical of who he's playing with, what line he's on, how many minutes he's getting, who's on his wing, and then even if they do go through with it, what kind of guy is he going to be in the locker room?
I got to tell you, I think that he's going to be happy to go to a team where he isn't the sole focus. A lot of guys are like that. They go from a team where so much is expected of them. They have to produce. They're not given the tools to produce. And then they get to go to a place where they don't have to carry the load on their back. And so I think, it's interesting too. There's a lot of players that have gone through the Edmonton system that once they've left, they've been successful going to another team. So
I agree with you. No,
reclamation projects or whatever you call it. But
I'm not talking about from a playing standpoint. I'm talking about from a disruption of chemistry standpoint. Someone who's going to, like the Islanders, knock on wood, have not had a lot of disruptive players, guys that are just, you don't hear a lot about anything about locker room drama with the Islanders.
Well, that's Lou. That's a Lou team.
But I'll be honest with you, you're right. But even before Lou, there was no locker room drama, and it's been like that for many years. And it's a good thing to have on a team, to have that tightness.
Yeah, the one thing about NHL players is, at least to the media and to the fans, there aren't egos, and everyone to a man will tell you that whatever it takes, whatever they bring in to be competitive and to stay competitive and be able to make a run at the cup, they're going to be all in favor of. So, I think that you're going to, if Taylor Hall happens to, be a target of the Islanders, I really don't think there's going to be any kind of disruptions. You're right to a point. They're going to have to figure out where he fits in the lineup, but I really don't think that you're going to have the kind of disruption that you're talking about.
Yeah, like I said, my knee-jerk reaction to that is absolutely do it. Black and white, yes. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, who else is on the table where we might not have this emotional baggage? Because there's a lot of listen. This isn't been a short-term thing with Taylor Hall. He's been going on and on about how upset he is for a while now. So he's carrying around some bitterness, some resentment.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little too sensitive about it, and maybe I'm underestimating his what he could do emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is for Taylor Hall as well is, we have already said his contract is up at the end of the year.
Right.
If he demonstrates anything with questionable character or temper tantrum or anything like that, that's not going to bode well for any contract negotiations.
Right.
So, there's a lot of things in play that go along with that. So, at any rate, I just thought that was interesting. Again, 2 months, 2 months away. Some bigger names or some teams that are in the market looking for some help. So we'll just have to keep our eyes open and see what happens. The Capitals were another team, not going to drag out the point, but the Caps were another team that was having to make roster moves to be able to put a lineup on the ice. Again, you have the roster freeze will be coming up over the holidays, and then you got basically a month. You got a month, a little over a month for teams to start wheeling and dealing. And most oftentimes, teams have not been waiting for the deadline to start making moves. So I think we may see some things heat up over the next month.
Just really quick, and then we'll move forward regarding Taylor Hall. Obviously, I've read and heard the Islanders' name mentioned as far as teams that that have been thrown out there and attached to Taylor Hall. But did you hear something new within the last 24 hours or no?
No, not anything specific in the last 24 hours.
Right. Okay.
So.
All right. You want to do some game predictions?
Well, I do want to hit on one more thing. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So we talk about fantasy. We always talk about fantasy hockey, and so the NHL put out a fantasy hockey line top 25 rankings for 2019-2020 that actually came out today.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to go through the entire list. It's 25 forward lines from a fantasy hockey standpoint for the rest of the season. And so I think it's interesting. So if you had to guess which line is number one on the list,
well, it's either Edmonton or Boston.
Okay. So 50, 90, make a pick. One or the other, dude.
Today?
It just came out today. Yeah.
Oh, well, because Bergeron. All right, so I'll go with Edmonton.
Nope, you'd be incorrect. So the NHL predicted their fantasy prediction or the fantasy rankings. Number one is Boston with Brad Marchand, David Krejci, and David Pastrnak. So they've been there.
Okay, without Bergeron.
Top of the list. Yep. Patrice Bergeron is a key injury, but again, most NHL teams now are pairing two players together, not necessarily an entire line. So number two, which is a change from the last rankings, is now Colorado.
Yeah.
So interesting. Again, Taylor Hall going to this team. So the line is made up of Gabriel Landeskog, who was just added this week, or Jonas Donskoy with Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen. And then third is Edmonton with Draisaitl, McDavid, and James Neal. So James Neal was just added to that line due to an injury to Zach Kassian.
Yeah.
Now, the Oilers have split up McDavid and Draisaitl. So, that's based on some injuries. So we'll see if that line continues to hold. But again, Draisaitl and McDavid are insane. It's just crazy. It's just crazy to watch them.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4 is Washington with Ovechkin, Backstrom, and Wilson. Backstrom's expected to return to the ice this week. And then that'll bump Evgeny Kuznetsov back down on the second line.
Yep.
Again, from a fantasy perspective, these are players who are going to get points by association. Mm-hmm. So Ovechkin's going to get goals. Backstrom's going to feed him. Wilson is probably going to get assists. So when you look at your fantasy lineups, these are the things you need to keep in mind. Who is playing on a line, who's been together, and who's scoring the points. Number 5 is Florida with Jonathan Huberdeau, Alexander Barkov, and Evgeny Dadonov.
Yeah.
Number 6 is Tampa Bay with Andre Palat, Steven Stamkos, and Braden Point. Number 7 is Carolina, Nino Niederreiter or Andrei Svechnikov with Sebastian Aho and Teuvo Teravainen. So they're up a spot. Winnipeg has Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Patrick Laine. Vancouver is number 9, JT Miller, Elias Peterson, Brock Besser. Yep. Number 10, Washington again, with Jacob Vrana, Evgeny Kuznetsov, and TJ Oshie.
Crazy.
right? Yeah, and so that's two lines that Washington has on
In the
there.
top 10.
Yeah, in the top 10. So it's definitely you're gonna have lines are gonna have slumps. Lines are gonna go through things, but if you can get players that are paired together and put them together, you're gonna end up pulling out points. So you may
Right.
not win in the goals category every week, but you may be able to pick somebody up that's going to get you assists.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something worth paying attention to get that um, get those players in your fantasy league. So interesting enough too.
Yeah.
So in addition to Washington having two lines in the top 25, Winnipeg has two, and the Vegas Golden Knights have two.
Yeah.
So definitely, some guys to take a look at. So again, that was on NHL.com. That was their top 25 fantasy line rankings, and they've definitely got some others that are in there too. Team ranks, power rankings, projected lineups, and things like that. So a lot of sources out there for fantasy hockey. Again, if you're a fan, but you're not really sure, how to get into it, I recommend fantasy hockey is the best way to just jump right in.
Absolutely.
So
Very good. Absolutely.
all right, yeah. So I'm exhausted now, having carried this. So yeah, let's do what we're gonna do here.
Want to do some score? You want to do some schedule stuff?
Yeah. Let's knock some of that stuff out.
So, for tomorrow, Monday, December 9th, I think before we do, just to recap from last Wednesday's podcast, there were 9 games, of which I got 4 correct, and you sir only had 3 correct. So
We're
I'm
keeping
so
score.
sorry.
Got it.
Yeah, I feel for you. So tomorrow night, Monday, December 9th, Islanders at the Lightning.
So I'd like to get your opinion on how the Islanders have been playing of late. We talked about coming down off the hill from that point streak that they were on, and you and I both agreed, and I still believe it, that being on the streak was not something like they lost the first one and they were just going to go plunging, but they have lost a couple games in the last week. Tampa is kind of on a bit of an upward momentum, but I could see the game going either way. I'm just curious your thoughts on how the Islanders have been playing of late.
They're not adjusting to the road well. Period. They didn't do well on their West Coast trip. They come back home. They get into the barn, as I mentioned, and I just know the way the barn is. I know how it feeds the energy and channels energy right through the bones and the structure of the building, right up through the players' feet on the ice. So I know that they were. You just know that they're going to come back. They're going to be disappointed about their road trip. It's a perfect storm. They're going to get fed all that energy, and they're just going to bounce right back in the barn. There's something going on the road where
7-5-1 on the road.
yeah, what they
As
don't
opposed to 12-2
feel
one at home.
they don't feel that sense of urgency unless they're down, and then when they're down, then they start playing, and as of late, it's been too little, too late. So they show that they know how to do it. It's just that they're not doing it from the first minute of the first period. They're doing it when they're down a goal or two. So I don't know why. Maybe they're, are they burning out a little bit? I can't see Barry letting that happen. I can't see the coaching staff letting that happen, but it's happening, and it's happening on the road. So if I were to go by the recent record over the last week and a half, for all intents and purposes, I mean, they're at the Lightning. I'd say if I could walk away with a point out of this game, I'd be happy. Right now I'm in the mindset, let's just get points. Let's just get a point. Show me a point at the Lightning. I would have been happy with a point with Dallas the other night. They lost to Dallas 3-1. Both, the 2-goal difference for Dallas came off power plays. So, it was a tight game otherwise. I feel that they played sporadic. They started off hot, then they went a little cool, then they heated up, then they went cool. Of course, Joseph was on fire. All these goalies seem to be just getting cranked up to play the Islanders lately on the road, and these road games for the Islanders. So, you know what? I I'm gonna say I'll. The Islanders have had the Lightning's number. I'll say the last time they played, they won 5-2. I say the Islanders in overtime.
All right. All right.
Well, who are you going with on that one?
I'm going to go with Tampa. Just, I don't know. I think
In regulation?
Yeah. I'm going to call it. I'm going to say Tampa's going to win by 1 in regulation. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Blue Jackets and Capitals.
So, again, Blue Jackets have been picking up some points. The Washington is on a 6-game win streak, so they're riding high. They're definitely confident. I'm gonna have to go with Washington on that one.
Yeah, same here. Bruins Senators.
Boston. I mean, you can't go wrong betting on them.
I don't see anything the Senators have that can hurt the Bruins. Like I just don't see what they can do to.
The only thing would be is if Anderson has just stands on his head in goal. That's the only thing I can think of that would turn that tide.
So we're both going with the Bruins on that one, and Flames and Avalanche.
Again, I'm going to have to go with Colorado. Calgary is on a 4-game winning streak, so again, they've got some confidence. Where is that game being played?
The way it's listed here, I believe this is at Colorado.
So Calgary is 6-9-2 on the road.
Yeah.
They've won 4, but again, not very good away from home.
Yeah.
So Colorado is not necessarily as good of a home team, but they haven't played as many games at home. But Colorado is boasting a +28 differential, a goal differential, whereas Calgary is at a -11. So we already talked about Colorado having that, that fantasy line being in the top 5.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I would. I'm going to agree with you on this one. So I think we agree on 3 out of 4, except for the Islander Lightning game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
So
sir.
So let's just end it there, because I think every team in the NHL is playing on the 10th, and I think we'll be here all night.
I think typically we only do the next day. So I agree with you. Yeah, we're going to skip the 10th.
Yeah.
But we'll be back on Wednesday the 11th. And very good. I think what we're going to start to do is we're going to see a little bit more of a regular underlying theme to each podcast or broadcast, I should say, as you and I have discussed, where we're going to have maybe visit the current state of affairs for each team in the league, and kind of knock out every team over the course of the next many weeks. But something to look forward to. But as always, you can reach us if you have any questions for myself or for Scotty. You can reach us at 2LPucks on Twitter, on Facebook, and obviously here on Periscope every Wednesday and Sunday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or at on our Gmail, 2LPucks@gmail.com.
Also,
Scotty,
the videos are uploaded to YouTube, so we have our own YouTube channel. So feel free to comment there as well. The last thing I want to throw out there is for anybody that owns NHL 20. Snoop Dogg was added this week as a character and as a play-by-play commentator. So I don't know why, but he's there. So I thought that was interesting on this week's patch.
It's Snoop.
So
it's like,
yeah, I know.
He knows hockey.
He does. He knows sports. I'll give him that. But anyway.
All right.
anything to make a buck. Yeah.
Very good, sir. Thank you for your time, everyone. I hope everyone has a good evening. We'll see you on Wednesday.
All right. Take care.